Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Santoro, founder of Tactical Security Solutions, and I'd like to welcome you to my brand new class. Usually, when I do these classes on situational awareness or whatever the subject is, I'm usually teaching this in front of a live audience. It's usually a paid class, right? This class is something different. This class is going to be 100% online and available for anybody to watch anytime, anywhere, whenever they want, totally free of charge, okay? The reason I'm doing this classes like this is because September marked 1 year since I started this venture. So just as a little, celebratory thing, a little congratulations to making it this far. We're in the process of getting licensed, and all that good stuff and moving forward and making some good progress. So I thought I'd put this class together to present to everybody to enjoy. All right. So this class is called Fear Itself. So welcome to Fear Itself, understanding and using fear to your advantage. Why do we want to do that? Because, right, safety and security, fear is an important part of that. Fear is everything that's involved with safety and security and being safe because fear plays a part in that. We're going to find out why, okay? So let's get ready. Here we go. What is fear, right? So according to the American Psychological Association, fear is noun, a basic intense emotion aroused by the detection of an imminent threat involving an immediate alarm reaction that mobilizes the organism by triggering a set of psychological changes. What does that mean? Basically, what that means is fear is that intense emotion that basically tells your body to be primed and to analyze a situation and to be able to move forward and assess the situation and know how to move, where to go, what to think, and what choices to make. So, physical actions of fear. Fear can cause the following physical actions in the body: rapid heartbeat, redirection of blood flow, and the tensing of the muscles. These actions happen because the brain is telling the body to get ready to flight or flee, and is also known as fight or flight, right? So, in simple terms, the body is being primed to carry out an action. Okay, so the blood gets primed in the muscles to get ready to move. The brain gets rid of all unnecessary thought and unnecessary focus, and it just focuses on whatever the situation is, and it devotes all of its attention to that and all of its thought making process to that, right? It's filtering out what's useless at that time so it's not clouded by that. It's almost like it's putting blinders on you to just pay attention to this situation. That is the physical actions of fear. Your body is being primed for a reaction. Mental actions of fear. Fear just doesn't cause physical actions within the body, it can also cause mental actions. When the brain senses fear, the response can be reasoning and their judgment to become impaired. It can make you feel, see, or think about things in an unreasonable manner, right? Who's ever been in a situation to where they're scared of something, say you're afraid of heights or you're afraid of something like that, and the higher you get up in the building or the closer you get to the edge of the mountain or something like that, right? That's the mental actions of fear is coming in. Now your judgment's unreasonable. Think about people who are afraid of the dark. Little kids are afraid of the dark, right? There may be nothing in the dark and completely safe. So it's that unreasonable feelings that you're feeling about something, right? So that's that mental actions of fear that it can kind of cloud your brain and make you respond to things in an unreasonable situation. What we want to do instead is we want to harness fear and use that to our advantage. So, how does fear work? The science of fear, right? Fear is a product of physical and emotional responses in the brain. The amygdala is a small almond shaped structure in the brain. It's responsible for the storage and processing of emotions associated with triggering events, including fear, right? It also enables humans and animals to detect environmental threats, right? Animals are great at this. I always teach this in my situational aware class. I show a picture of a bunny and a picture of a dog and a picture of a deer. These animals are great at situational awareness and they're great at detecting environmental threats. Humans, not so much. Why? Because we've programmed ourselves and we've got out of that thing that's been in us since the caveman time, so we could avoid getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, right? That thought process that, hey, stop, the situation is not safe, right? We avoid that. We see unsafe situations, so it'll be okay, and we go into it, right? And that's what I always teach people. The little cute little animals, the deer and the bunny, they don't ever say, it'll be all right, and they just go into the dangerous situation. No, they reevaluate that situation and they either run away from it or they prepare themselves to be in it, right? Now, the hippocampus is responsible for memory operations, including the conditioning and reaction to fear. Think about people with post-traumatic stress and things they experienced in the past, and how that comes into play, a month, a week, a year later, and they have that reaction to it. That's because their body has that conditioned reaction to that fear. Right, that's the hippocampus working. Something that happened to you. Maybe you got into a car accident at one point, and now getting into a car or getting on the freeway or something like that makes you nervous. That's the hippocampus because you're conditioned to have that response to fear. Okay. So fear versus anxiety. All right. A lot of times these terms are used interchangeable. They're not interchangeable. They're actually two completely different things. Right. Most of the time, fear and anxiety are thought of as interchangeable. They're not. Right. Fear is considered an appropriate mental and physical response to a situation that may be perceived as a threat. Fear is like a stop sign to tell you to take a moment and examine the situation, right? Think about you walking through the Walmart parking lot and you see a sketchy guy over there and you think to yourself, I don't like the look of him. I don't know what he's up to. I don't know if he's about to do something to me. He's about to rob me. I don't know what he's about to do, right? That's fear. Fear is coming in and you see that guy, and that's the amygdala going to work there, and it's telling you to stop. Hey, analyze this situation because something's not right with this sketchy guy in the Walmart parking lot, right? He's always in a Walmart parking lot, right? So you're examining the situation. Now, anxiety is something that's totally different. Anxiety is a mental and physical response to an event that previously happened, may happen in the future, or may never happen. Previously happened, you were exposed to a trauma or something like that. May happen in the future. Some people are afraid of, getting on the airplane, or afraid of public speaking, or afraid of some situation that they're going into. Or it may never happen, right? Anxiety is not real. Anxiety is an irrational response to a rational situation, right? So something you should be scared of, but for some reason you react to it in an excessive way, right? Or in a rational response to an irrational situation. Sometimes anxiety doesn't make sense. Sometimes people start experiencing anxiety for something that they don't even know. They put themselves in a situation and they're there, there's no stressors, there's nothing there. It's a comfortable situation, but then anxiety clicks in. Nobody knows why, but it's that irrational response to the irrational situation. Fear is real, whereas anxiety is perceived, right? Anxiety can be overcome, anxiety can be analyzed, anxiety can be taken apart. Henry David Thoreau, nothing so much is to be feared as fear. What did Thoreau mean by that? So, fearing fear. You can let fear be an anchor or a tool. That's why we have the little binoculars there, and we have the anchor. We're going to find out what that means in a second here. Fear as an anchor will hold you back, right? It'll freeze you and it'll stop you from moving forward. This is fearing fear. It is natural and understandable to fear fear. However, it is not the right way to use fear. Use fear as a tool to empower you. Thoreau was right that the most fearful thing is fear, right? But that's perception. Fear is not a bad thing. Fear shouldn't stop you, it should slow you down, right? Fear is that stop sign. Slow you down, analyze the situation, prepare your response to that. When you feel fear, you shouldn't run away. Instead, fear is telling you to stop and look at the situation. What are the dangers and the hazards if and when you do proceed? What is the right path to proceed? Fear exists to enable you. Being afraid exists to disable you. So the binoculars, that's that fear. It's enabling you. You're assessing the situation. You're looking around. You're getting all the information. Being afraid, it's a different thing from fear. It's that anchor. It's holding you down and it's disabling you. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? Great president. This is from his inaugural address from March 4th, 1933. Right? I won't be able to say this as great as he did, but here we go. First of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. Right? Try to put something on that there. But basically, what was Roosevelt saying? Roosevelt was talking in the time of the Depression when the country was, at one of its lowest points, where people were down. How am I going to eat? How am I going to afford things? People were in the streets. They were homeless. They were struggling, right? So let's analyze this. So basically, Roosevelt was telling the country that we should not live in fear, right? He uses the word paralyzed. That is a byproduct of being afraid. Fear itself is a tool that we use to get stronger, to see better, to think more cohesively, to try harder, right? Everybody says, oh, be fearless, have no fear. No, 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 no. That's not what you want to do. That is wrong. You never want to be fearless. Because fearless is cavalier, right? A firefighter runs into a burning building to save others. However, that firefighter is not fearless in doing this. People say that and think, oh, that guy has no fear. No, that firefighter has fear, but he's using that fear in the right way, right? He wears his helmet, he wears his fire protective clothing, he has his oxygen tank. He does this because fear tells him without it, he'll be burned and unable to breathe. He uses fear to stay safe in a chaotic situation, right? If that firefighter was fearless, he'd be cavalier and he'd be thinking stupidly, he'd run into a burning building just wearing his regular clothes. And you know what? When that fire catches him and he can't breathe and then something falls on his head or he gets burned up, guess what? He's useless to putting that fire out. He's useless to saving anybody in that building. So that fear tells him, hey, I have to use my equipment. I have to prepare. I have to think about this the right way. I can't just run into the burning building unprepared, right? That's fear prepared him and equipped him to do the right situation. Think of it, same thing with cops run into, a shootout or something like that. They don't do that because, they're super brave and they're fearless. No, people don't want to get shot. Nobody in their right mind is going to run into gunfire like that. But they do that because you know what? That fear tells them, hey, this is how I got to move. This is my cover. This is my concealment. This is how I prepare myself. This is how I equip myself. This is how I'm ready to assess this situation that's dangerous. So, using fear to your advantage. How do we use fear to our advantage? How do we use fear as a tool and not let fear be that disabling anchor? So, thoughts on fear, right? People fixate on the physical feelings of fear. Instead, they should understand not what fear is making them feel, but why fear is telling them this, okay? Fear should not be a barrier, it should be a message, right? It's that stop sign. Fear is a sign, not a wall. Embrace the fear and use it. Your reaction to fear should be psychological. Once it crosses into the physical, you become afraid. That's when you freeze up. That's when you tense up. That's when you can't move forward. That's when you can't think straight. Being afraid is like restraining yourself against your will, right? Fear comes before an action or encounter. Think about that. You're gonna go in to do something, and whatever you do, whether it be people don't like public speaking, they're about to do a speech, they're nervous beforehand, or they're about to do a play or and get on stage, or an athlete about to get on the field and play, right? There's always that apprehension, whether you're ready to do it or not. There's that apprehension, there's that nervousness, there's that tenseness before you go into the situation. That's that fear. It's coming before the encounter. Once you're in the middle of it, once that actor gets out there on the stage and they're doing what they got to do, or once that athlete gets out on the field, they don't have that fear anymore. They're not thinking about it. They're in the middle of it. Fear is usually a precursor to something, okay? So it's for that reason that our fear is highest right before we act. Usually, during our actions, there's no fear, the fear is subsided, okay? Fear impacts how we think. How you think influences how you perform, and every decision you make and every action we execute is based on emotion. Okay? So, now we're going to look at this. Fear works mainly through sight and sound, okay? So, look at the box below. There's no real fear, right? It's just a blue box. But what if we remove the box? Ah, right? So look at the lion and imagine you were standing only 2 yards from him. The sight of his teeth instills fear. The sound of his roar instills fear. The fear becomes real because you can see it and you can hear it. When that blue box is there, it's just a blue box. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about. Once that lion's there, that's what changes. Think about that. You're walking through something, you're walking through somewhere, and the situation's calm. All of a sudden, something comes out from around the corner and startles you. What is that? You didn't have that fear until that something came out and startled you. That's because you heard a noise somewhere or you saw something move and you got startled, right? It was the sight and it was the sound and it was the senses that caused that fear to be real. That's how fear works. Fear works through our senses. If we don't know it's there, the fear is not going to trigger, okay? So, stress inoculation, big fancy word. Stress inoculation is a process in which you're exposed to stressors, fears, and learn to adapt and react with the stress scenario. Stress inoculation as a practice was developed by Canadian psychologist Dr. Donald Meichenbaum. Sorry. It works much like a vaccine. You expose the body to a controlled sample of a stress and you allow the body to adapt to it. What is a vaccine? They inject you with, well, it used to be actually live virus and now it's an inert virus, but they put a small controlled sample of something into your body so your body recognizes it and it starts to build a defense to it, right? So Meichenbaum and he identified 3 phases of stress inoculation. Conceptualization, we identify the stress. Your body identifies that virus has entered it. Skills acquisition, we develop the skills to deal with the stress and work through it. Your body builds the antibodies, or you learn a skill and you learn training and stuff like that to get yourself through a situation. And the follow through, we use the techniques learned to carry out the desired or required task. That vaccination again, when a year from now you get exposed to something, your body already built that defense. It already knows how to handle it, right? So this is the basis of training methods used in military basic training and police academies and stuff like that. You're exposed to stress at a controlled environment, so you learn to adapt. So when the stress level in the real world is at a level 10, right? You're operating at a level 5, right? The more exposure you have to a stress, the easier it is to control that fear reaction. This is why, anybody's been in the military, been to a police academy, or you've seen movies with a drill sergeant or scenes like that in boot camp, and you see, all the soldier recruits are getting yelled at. That's not just for, a show of force, or so, the drill sergeants can show how big and bad they are. Well, sometimes it is, but what that is a stress inoculation, and they're teaching you to operate in a stressful situation. All that yelling and all that chaos has a reason, because when the soldier gets out in the field or the police officer gets out in the field and they're in a chaotic situation, and things are blowing up or people are shooting at you, you got to be able to, the stress levels up here, you got to be able to operate yourself right here in that situation. So I remember when I was in the police academy, they used to do that, and they explained stress inoculation to us, and they explained all the yelling and all that stuff is for a reason. So when you're in that first inspection, you're out there and you don't know nothing and you're looking a mess, and they're on you and everything like that, and you can't perform. But all those months later, after you've been trained and after you've been conditioned to deal with that stress, boy, you're just rattling off. We had to learn the codes and the verbatims and definitions of crime and laws and stuff like that. And you can just rattle them off like that, no matter what the stressful situation is, no matter if somebody's in your face, they're yelling at you, they're moving around you. And I always said, when you're at your best, when you're at the end, and the only thing they can call you out on is silly stuff that doesn't even make sense, because you're operating so well under that stress that you've been conditioned and you've been trained. That's what stress inoculation is. Dr. Meichenbaum, he went ahead and he put that on paper, but that's something that our bodies are trained to do. That's something that's been around forever. Okay? So exposing yourself to the situation, that's a conceptualization. We identify what our stressor is. Skills acquisition, that's the training and that's the skill set that we require. And the follow through is we take those skills and we take those abilities and we learn to carry out the desired task. Okay? How do we harness fear? How do we harness fear? How do we use it to our advantage? So, fear is a tool, right? The key is to not overcome fear, but use it to your advantage. Remember, fearless is careless, whereas I'm sorry. Remember that fearless is the same as careless, whereas fearless is careless, fear is cautious. Okay? Experience and training are how you manage and harness the fear to your advantage, right? That's that skills acquisition that we talked about. Define the fear. Now approach that fear from a safe place and learn ways to adapt it, right? The only way we ever advance in anything, from your career to a sport or to an endeavor, is you need to leave your safe zone. You need to harness fear. You can never move up in the world. You can never do better in your career. You can never move, and improve yourself without exposing yourself and leaving your safe zone. Harness that fear, get that skills acquisition, and move forward. Stay frosty. It's a military term. Some cops use that. Stay frosty means to stay sharp, stay aware, have your skills sharp. Fear keeps you sharp. You try harder when fear is on the line, right? You're sloppy when fear is not on the line because it's safe. Leave that safe zone. Accept that failure is real and it's always a possibility. People are generally afraid to fail, and then that fear is fuel to avoid failure. All right? So use that. Don't be afraid to fail. We don't learn anything from winning. What happens when we win? We celebrate for an hour, we celebrate for a week, maybe a month, and then you know what? We go back to our daily lives and our daily routine, right? Think about a team who wins a championship. They win the championship, they get their trophy or whatever, and you know what? The season's over, and then next season comes, and you got to start from scratch and square one. But what do you keep and hold on to forever? People hold on to failure forever because failure is where you learn, and failure is where you thrive, and failure is where you get stronger, right? Failure is that breakdown, all right? And it builds you up stronger. Don't be afraid to fail, right? Embrace failure. Realize failure is always a possibility. Because when you realize that, you try harder and you work harder. And you're not afraid, right? Because what does afraid do? Afraid holds us back. You harness that fear, you realize failure is real, and you try to overcome it. So write down your fears and dissect them, right? When you have a fear pop up, write it down, dissect it, remove what is useless and irrelevant, and there's a chance that some of your fears don't even make sense to you. You may write this down and say, I don't even know why this is a fear of mine. I don't even know why this is bothering me. All right? We do not rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. So what does that mean? Our expectations can be crazy. People's goals are crazy. I want to be a millionaire. I want to have a big mansion, or I want to have my own business or something like that. Not saying any of that stuff's not achievable, but you know what? Our expectations are always up here, but we fall to the level of our training when we're at our darkest hour. Think about this. Look at Navy SEALs. Why do Navy SEALs train for years and years and years on end? Because they're put into the most horrific and crazy situations that are out there. Go ahead and read the story of Marcus Luttrell in the movie Lone Survivor. Read his book, Lone Survivor. Marcus Luttrell was stuck out there. His whole team got killed, and here he is, thousands of miles away from home. Imagine yourself being thousands of miles away from home. You just watched all your friends die, and you're alone in the middle of nowhere, and you're banged up, and you're shot up, and you got your bones broken, and you just fell off a mountain. Can you imagine that? How do you get through? How do you survive? Do you just lay there and die, or do you keep going? How did he keep going? He kept going because what did he do? He fell to the level of that Navy SEAL training. The BUDS training that they go through, in the years and years of training that those guys go through. He fell to the level of his training to be able to survive and be able to make it out of there. And all these years later, he's still out there and he's still thriving and he made it. All right. So think about this way: your expectations are way up here. They're not realistic until you put into the work. But when you get out there and you got to do the work and things get hard, you will fall to the level of your training. Okay? So that's why I always say stay ready, don't get ready. If you're ready and you're trained and you're prepared for whatever you're going to do, that's what I always like to teach in my situational awareness classes. I give you these tools and I give you these tips and I give you all this other stuff because that's your training. So when you're in that hectic situation, you're in that unsafe situation, or you're seeing that creepy guy in the Walmart parking lot, now he's coming towards you and he's looking like he's about to do something, right? We fall to level our training. We just don't curl up and die. We just don't panic and stand there and let him, attack us. So stay ready, don't get ready. Now, I fear what I cannot do. I fear what I do not know. So I embrace what I can do and I embrace what I know. And the more I can do and the more I know, the less I will fear, right? I came up with this myself, but what does it mean? So I fear what I cannot do. I fear what I cannot know, right? People fear the unknown. They fear what they don't know. They fear new things. So I embrace what I can do, my skills, right? I embrace what I know, my knowledge. The more I can do, the more skills I have, the more I know, the more knowledge I have, the less of all fear because I'm removing more of that unknown. Okay? So just remember that. Fear what I cannot do, fear what I do not know. Embrace what you can do, embrace your skills, embrace your knowledge. Increase your skills, increase your knowledge, and there's less unknown, less fear of that unknown. So that is the end of Fear itself. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And the first time we're doing an online class here and figuring out how this camera and all this other stuff works. And that's been the presentation. So like I said, if you've enjoyed it, this is my contact information here. That is my website. It's a little cut off there. It's tactiblesecurity.solutions.com. Sorry, the camera got a cut off here. Or that's my email, tactibless@gmail.com. Go ahead if you have any questions or if you enjoyed this, please go ahead and contact me. You go to my website, tactiblesecurity.solutions.com. I know it's cut off there, but they'll have the description at the bottom is going to have the contact information on the website. Go there. I have other trainings. I have other important information. I have links to different partner sites of different protective equipment and stuff that I like to endorse that I think is really good. So I want to thank you so much for joining me in this. It was a little trial and error thing, but just happy it came out this way. I wanted to put this together for fear because fear is important for safety and security. Fear is important to use that to be aware. Fear is just that situational awareness that I teach in my other classes. So I want to thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, please do me a huge favor and you want to thank me for this. Usually I charge for my classes. This is completely free of charge. So the way you can thank me on this is just go ahead and you know what? Share this with other people. Talk about this with other people. Use what you learned in your daily lives. Go ahead. Please feel free to comment on this. And if you subscribe to this, the more people we get and the more traffic we get with this, the more content I'll put up and all kinds of great stuff and offerings and stuff like that. As always, if you have any questions, please go ahead and email me. If there's anything you'd like to see in the future, go ahead. If this works out great, I'll be able to put some of my other classes together and be able to offer them online. Like I say in my situational awareness classes and other classes, I do this not to put a fear into people or show people how scary the world is. I do this to empower people. It's skills acquisition, right, that we talked about. I do this to give you the tools to go forward. So, like I said, if you really enjoy this, just give me a big thank you. Give me a review. Go ahead and subscribe to this, and I'll be able to give you lots of other content and information. But thank you so much for joining me in this. I thank you for your time. I really hope you learned something. I hope you got powered. Stay safe. Stay ready.